Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Cheating Tales Lab. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know, what part of the world are you watching from right now? Let us know in the comments. Now, let's dive into today's story. The morning sun filtered through the bay windows of Boston General's executive wing, casting long shadows across Dr. Zachary Butler's collection of medical awards. At 45, he stood before the wall of achievements, adjusting his white coat with practiced precision. His dark hair, touched with distinguished silver at the temples, framed features that had only grown more refined with age. Dr. Butler? His assistant Sarah knocked softly. Your 8 a.m. is prepped and waiting. Zachary checked his Patek Philippe watch, a gift from a grateful patient whose daughter he'd saved through an experimental procedure. Thank you, Sarah. Tell Dr. Reynolds I'll scrub in now. Walking through the corridors, Zachary acknowledged the respectful nods from colleagues and the admiring glances from residents. He'd earned every ounce of that respect, building his reputation surgery by surgery, miracle by impossible miracle. In the scrub room, Herbert Blanchard entered quietly, his usual jovial demeanor subdued. Zach, got a minute? For you. Herb? Always. Zachary began the methodical process of scrubbing in. They'll make it quick, got a thoracic reconstruction waiting. Herbert shifted uncomfortably, his bulk making the small room feel even tighter. It's about Candace. Zachary's hands didn't pause in their practiced routine. What about her? There are rumors. About her and Dr. Stewart. Frederick? Zachary's laugh echoed off the sterile walls. The Swiss import? Herb, you're getting paranoid in your old age. I've known you 20 years, Zach. You're the finest surgeon I've ever worked with and a damn good friend. I wouldn't say anything if I wasn't certain something was off. Zachary dried his hands, turning to face his friend. Candace and I have been married 20 years. We have 3 incredible kids. She's busy managing their academic careers at Phillips, organizing charity galas, and maintaining our social obligations. When would she have time for an affair? Herbert's expression remained grave. Just keep your eyes open, Zach. Please. At the Butler mansion in Beacon Hill, Candace Butler stood before her full-length mirror, applying another layer of La Prairie cream to her neck. At 42, she still turned heads at every social function, her blonde hair expertly maintained, her figure preserved through rigorous Pilates sessions. Mom? Sophia's voice called from the hallway. Can you sign my permission slip for the debate tournament? Just leave it on my desk, darling. I'll sign it before dinner. Candace examined her reflection critically. The new Swiss anti-aging treatments Frederick recommended were working wonders. Downstairs, Trevor and Marshall sprawled across the living room sofa, identical in their Phillips Academy blazers, yet distinct in their mannerisms. Trevor scrolled through college applications while Marshall focused on his calculus homework. Think Dad'll make it to dinner this time? Trevor asked, not looking up from his laptop. Marshall shrugged. Another impossible surgery, probably. You know how it goes. At least he makes time for our lacrosse games, Sophia added, descending the stairs. Unlike some people's parents, Candace emerged from her room, phone in hand. Your father works very hard to give us this life. Now, who's ready for dinner? I made reservations at Sorellina. Can't, Trevor replied. Got a Zoom call with Princeton admissions, and I'm meeting my study group, Marshall added. Candace's perfectly manicured hand waved dismissively. Sophia? Sorry, Mom. Debate prep. Well then, Candace smiled, checking her phone. I suppose I'll have to cancel. Such dedicated students, all of you. As her children dispersed, Candace's phone buzzed with a message from Frederick. Meet at the usual place? Z's in surgery until midnight. Her fingers flew across the screen. Perfect. Don't be late. The medical conference in Chicago droned on, speakers presenting data Zachary could recite in his sleep. He checked his watch. His last procedure had been rescheduled, opening an unexpected window. Perfect time to surprise the family. The flight back to Boston passed quickly, his mind dwelling on Herbert's warning. 20 years of marriage had taught him to trust his instincts, and something felt off. Small things he dismissed. Candace's new wardrobe, her sudden interest in European medical journals, the Swiss spa treatments. The house was quiet when he arrived, save for voices from his study. He approached silently, years of surgical precision serving him well. "You're sure about the timing?" Marshall's voice, uncharacteristically serious. "Trust me, darling." Candace's tone was one Zachary had never heard before, calculated, cold. "Once you and Trevor are settled at Princeton, everything's set. The divorce papers are ready. Your father won't know what hit him." Zachary's hand froze on the doorknob. "But why wait?" Marshall asked. "Why not just tell him now?" A laugh, brittle as breaking glass. "Because your father's name still carries weight with college admissions. Once that's secured, Frederick and I have everything arranged. The accounts, the house. Dean and Jared have been helping me plan this for years. Dean Hand and Jared Hickman, his lawyer and accountant. His friends. And the DNA test?" Marshall's question hung in the air. "Frederick's been more of a father to you than Zachary ever was. The test just confirms what we've always known." Through the crack in the door, Zachary watched Candace move to her laptop, initiating a video call. Frederick Steward's face filled the screen, his Swiss accent thick with smugness. "Ah, my loves. How goes the planning?" "Perfectly," Candace purred. "Zachary's conference runs through tomorrow. Another late surgery next week?" Frederick's laugh grated like surgical steel on bone. "Already arranged. These Americans so easily manipulated. They actually believe I need their approval for every procedure." Zachary stepped back silently, his mind crystallizing into surgical clarity. In the operating room, emotions were liability. Success required precision, planning, and most importantly, timing. The next 6 hours passed in calculated efficiency. A call to Jonathan Drake, his Harvard classmate turned cutthroat divorce attorney in New York. A thorough sweep of Candace's laptop, her password still their anniversary date, the irony not lost on him. Years of emails between her and Frederick, dating back to his first arrival at Boston General. Correspondence with Dean and Jared, outlining their strategy to strip him of assets. Most damning, DNA test results showing Frederick's paternity of the twins, taken when they were infants. She'd known. She'd always known. By dawn, new trusts were established, funds transferred, and evidence secured. The kitchen table held his parting message, along with copies of every damning email and document. His wedding ring sat atop the pile. Sarah's voicemail chirped at 6 a.m. "Dr. Butler? The board approved your sabbatical request. Your cases have been reassigned. Is everything all right?" "Everything's perfect, Sarah," he replied, standing in his study one last time. Sometimes the best surgeries require removing damaged tissue entirely. The sun rose over Boston as Zachary Butler drove west, his Aston Martin eating up miles. Behind him, a perfectly constructed life imploded. Ahead lay something better than perfection, truth. In the kitchen, Candace would soon discover his note. The truth reveals itself eventually. The children's education is secured. Everything else you'll have to earn. He smiled, remembering Frederick's smug face on the video call. Let them try to spin this. Let them scramble to salvage their plans. They'd thought him blind, consumed by his work, too trusting. They'd forgotten the most important thing about Zachary Butler. He didn't just perform miracles. He excelled at cutting out disease. The highway stretched before him, dawn painting the sky in shades of rebirth. In his rearview mirror, Boston's skyline diminished, along with the perfect lie he'd lived for 20 years. Zachary Butler had built his reputation on doing the impossible. Now it was time to perform his greatest feat, reconstructing a life on his own terms. Herbert Blanchard sat in his office, reading Zachary's resignation letter. Unlike the manufactured drama Candace would soon unleash, this was classic Zach. Precise, professional, final. His phone buzzed with a message. "Thank you for being a true friend, Herb. Keep an eye on the children for me?" Herbert smiled, remembering the young surgeon who'd arrived at Boston General 2 decades ago. They thought they'd break him. Instead, they'd freed him. "Go get him, Zach," he muttered, deleting the message. "Show them what a real surgeon can do." In his pocket, a USB drive contained copies of every security recording showing Candace and Frederick's indiscretions. Insurance, Zach had called it. Herbert called it justice. Dawn broke over Boston General, and Herbert Blanchard began his rounds, whistling softly. Sometimes, he mused, the best healing started with a clean cut. The aspen morning air carried the crisp scent of pine as Dr. Zachary Butler reviewed patient files in his new private practice. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed snow-capped mountains, a far cry from Boston General's sterile corridors. His exclusive clientele appreciated both his surgical genius and his discretion, a combination that commanded premium rates. His phone buzzed with a text from Herbert. "They're getting desperate. Tried accessing the trust documents today." Zachary smiled, remembering his grandfather's foresight. The old man had protected the family estate through an ironclad trust, ensuring it passed directly through the male line. Neither divorce nor death could touch it. "How's the surveillance footage?" he texted back. "Ready when needed. Your timing, as always, is impeccable." Back in Boston, Candace Butler's carefully manicured nails drummed against Dean Hand's mahogany desk. "What do you mean, you can't access the house trust?" Dean loosened his collar, sweat beading despite the office's air conditioning. "It's ironclad, Candace. His grandfather's trust predates your marriage. We can't touch it. Then find another way." She hurled her designer handbag across the room. "I've got appearances to maintain. Do you know what people are saying? Perhaps if you and Frederick had been more discreet." Her eyes narrowed. "Careful, Dean. Remember who knows about your creative accounting. And remember who helped you plan this disaster." Dean shot back, finding his spine. "I'm not the one who lost access to millions because I couldn't keep my affair private." Candace stormed out, her Louboutins clicking angrily down the hallway. In her car, she called Frederick. "Any luck with the house?" His Swiss accent had lost its charm. "Nothing. That bastard planned this perfectly." She pulled into traffic, ignoring a red light. "We need to control the narrative. I'm telling everyone he had a breakdown, abandoned his family." Frederick's laugh held an edge. "Already done, my dear. The hospital staff is quite sympathetic to your plight." Herbert Blanchard sat in his office, watching security footage from the past year. Candace and Frederick's discreet meetings played out in high definition. Supply closets, on-call rooms, even Herbert's own conference room. "You really should have been more careful," he muttered, copying select clips to a USB drive. 20 years of friendship with Zachary had taught him patience. Timing was everything. His phone rang. Boston Globe's medical correspondent. "Mr. Blanchard? About those rumors concerning Dr. Butler's departure." Herbert smiled. "Actually, I have something you might find interesting." Trevor Butler slumped in Princeton's admissions office, the acceptance letter heavy in his hands. Around him, other legacy students chatted excitedly with their parents. "Your father's contribution to the medical community is remarkable," the admissions officer beamed. "We're honored to have you joining us." Marshall, sitting beside his twin, gripped his own acceptance letter. "Thank you. We hope to continue his legacy." Outside, reality waited. Their phones buzzed constantly with messages from former friends, sharing links to news articles. Boston General scandal. Prominent surgeon's wife in affair with Swiss doctor. Medical community shocked by Butler family drama. Questions arise about Swiss doctor's credential. "Did you see Mom's interview?" Trevor asked, scrolling through his phone. Marshall snorted. "The one where she plays abandoned wife?" "Yeah. Wonder what Dad thinks about it." "He's not thinking about it at all," Trevor replied. "He's probably performing career-defining surgeries somewhere, living his best life while they self-destruct." Their phones buzzed simultaneously. Sophia calling. "Have you seen the latest?" Their sister's voice cracked. Frederick's wife found out everything. "She's on the hospital board." Lorraine Stewart's heels echoed through Boston General's boardroom. At 50, she carried herself with the rigid posture of old European money. The emergency board meeting had been her idea. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her British accent cutting through whispers, "I've discovered some disturbing information about my husband's credentials." Frederick, seated at the far end, paled. "Darling, perhaps we should discuss this privately? Like you discussed draining our accounts privately?" She smiled, all teeth. "No, I think the board needs to hear about your creative history in Switzerland." She distributed folders to each member. "You'll find documented cases of malpractice, falsified research, and interestingly, a pattern of affairs with patients' wives. It seems Boston isn't your first hunting ground. Frederick lunged for the papers. These are lies. The Swiss Medical Board disagrees. Lorraine's smile never wavered. They're quite interested in speaking with you. In her Beacon Hill mansion, Candace watched her social circle evaporate. Charity board positions, club memberships, school committee seats all resigned with polite but firm emails. They can't do this to us. Frederick paced the study, Zachary's former study. I'm a respected surgeon. Candace corrected, pouring another glass of wine. Past tense. Like my marriage, your career, and our plans. Sophia appeared in the doorway, her expression cold. Mom? My tutoring check bounced. Not now, darling. Mommy's handling a crisis. You mean like how you handled destroying our family? Sophia's voice carried none of its former warmth. I got another letter today. Anonymous. Explaining how to apply for independent student status for financial aid. Funny timing. Frederick snorted. Your father, playing games from the shadows. At least he's still playing, Sophia shot back. Unlike you two, losing everything in broad daylight. Dean Hand's office felt smaller with 3 lawyers from New York crowding his desk. The trust funds are ironclad, Jonathan Drake, Zachary's Harvard classmate, explained with practiced boredom. And before you try, we have documented evidence of your conspiracy to defraud Dr. Butler. I was acting on client instruction. You were actively conspiring to hide assets and facilitate fraud, Drake corrected. Would you like us to share your emails with the Bar Association? Dean slumped. What does Zachary want? Nothing. He's moved on. This is just insurance. Against further poor decisions, the Massachusetts Medical Board convened its emergency session with unprecedented speed. Frederick sat before them, his normally immaculate appearance showing cracks. Dr. Stewart, the chairman began, we've received concerning evidence about your practice in Switzerland. Care to explain these cases? Frederick straightened his tie. A competitor's smear campaign. From your own former hospital? The chairman shuffled papers. They're quite detailed, particularly the Jensen case. The patient died because you were otherwise occupied with his wife? This is ridiculous. I demand. You demand nothing, the chairman cut in. Your privileges are suspended pending investigation. Security will escort you out. In the hallway, Herbert watched Frederick's walk of shame. His phone buzzed with a text from an unlisted number. Well played, old friend. Herbert deleted the message, smiling. Sometimes Carmen needed a little help. Sophia sat in her room, reading the latest anonymous letter. Unlike her mother's dramatic displays of suffering for the cameras, these words carried real weight. Your worth isn't measured by other people's mistakes. Focus on your future, it's brighter than you know. When you're ready for college, the path will be clear. Trust yourself. She traced the familiar handwriting, so similar to the signatures on years of school permission slips. Outside, she heard her mother arguing with Frederick about dwindling funds and mounting legal fees. Her phone lit up with a text from Trevor. Princeton's amazing. You should see the pre-med program. Dad would love it. Another from Marshall followed. Got my research grant. Anonymous donor. 3 guesses who. Sophia smiled, tucking the letter into her growing collection. Their father hadn't abandoned them. He'd simply changed how he showed up. In his Aspen office, Zachary reviewed the latest reports from Boston. Herbert kept him well informed, though he never acknowledged it directly. His new practice thrived, attracting patients willing to pay premium rates for privacy and excellence. A familiar name appeared in his inbox, Trevor's midterm results. Then Marshall's research proposal. Finally, Sophia's college counseling reports. All forwarded through various channels, maintaining his invisible presence in their lives. His phone buzzed Herbert again. They tried contesting the trusts. Your lawyers shut it down in record time. Dean Hand folded like cheap origami. Zachary smiled, remembering Candace's smug certainty, Frederick's arrogant plotting. They thought him blind, absorbed in his work. They'd never understood that a surgeon's greatest skill wasn't in his hands, but in his capacity to wait, watch, and strike with precision. The mountain sunset painted his office in golds and reds. On his desk, 3 separate college funds grew steadily, protected from the chaos in Boston. His children would have their future, regardless of DNA. Sometimes the best revenge wasn't in striking back, but in rising above and watching your enemies sink under the weight of their own choices. In Boston, Candace and Frederick's carefully constructed plans crumbled, while in Aspen, Zachary Butler built something new. Not a perfect lie, but an honest future. And in the end, that made all the difference. The sun set behind the Aspen Mountains, painting Zachary Butler's modernist mansion in amber hues. His private practice had become the stuff of medical legend celebrities, politicians, and billionaires waiting months for appointments, paying premium rates for his surgical expertise and ironclad discretion. Dr. Butler? His assistant's voice came through the intercom. There are 3 people here without appointments. They say they're your children. Zachary's hand hovered over the intercom button. 3 years of careful distance, maintaining influence through anonymous support, watching from afar as they navigated the aftermath of his departure. Send them in, Claire. Trevor entered first, broader now at 20, carrying himself with the confidence of a Princeton junior. Marshall followed, leaner than his twin, but with the same determined set to his jaw. Sophia, now 18, had grown into her mother's beauty but carried none of Candace's artifice. Dad, Trevor spoke first, his voice deeper than Zachary remembered. We need your help. Mom's sick, Marshall added. Aggressive cancer. The prognosis is bad. Sophia's voice cracked. And Frederick, he's gone. Took everything and went back to Switzerland. Zachary gestured to the leather chairs facing his desk. Tell me everything. The story spilled out in pieces. Candace's diagnosis, stage 4 pancreatic cancer, discovered too late because she'd been too busy chasing Frederick's fading attention. Frederick's response had been predictably cruel. He said he didn't sign up for this. Trevor's disgust was palpable. Cleaned out their joint accounts and disappeared. Left a note saying he was returning home to start fresh. The irony, Marshall added, is that Mom can't even afford decent treatment now. All those years of social climbing, and her supposed friends vanished the moment Frederick did. Sophia pulled out a familiar-looking letter from her bag. These kept coming, every week. Advice about college applications, encouragement when things got dark. It was you, wasn't it? Zachary studied his daughter's face. You needed support, not abandonment, but you did leave, Trevor challenged, though without heat. I left your mother and Frederick. Never you 3. Zachary opened his laptop. I have connections at MD Anderson, the best oncology team in the country. We can't afford, Marshall began. You don't have to. Zachary's fingers flew across the keyboard. I'll handle everything. Anonymously. Why? Sophia asked. After everything she did? Zachary looked at each of his children. Yes, his, regardless of DNA. Because you love her. And because real strength isn't in revenge, but in choosing when to show mercy. Over the next week, Zachary met with each child individually. Trevor in his home office, discussing his pre-med coursework at Princeton. The mysterious reference for my hospital internship, Trevor smiled. That was you too? You earned it, Zachary replied. I just opened the door. You walked through it yourself. Marshall's meeting happened during a hike, the Aspen Trails challenging their fitness. The research grant, Marshall ventured. The anonymous donor? Your proposal was brilliant. It deserved funding, even though I'm not. Marshall trailed off. Zachary stopped, facing him. DNA is chemistry. Family is choice. I chose you 3. Every day for 20 years and every day since. Sophia's conversation unfolded over dinner at his favorite restaurant. The college counselor who helped with my Yale application, she smiled. Another of your guardian angel moments? You needed guidance, not interference. There's a difference. Mom never understood that, Sophia said quietly. Everything was about control with her. And Frederick, he just wanted trophies to display. At MD Anderson, Candace Butler received treatment in a private suite, never knowing who had arranged it. Her children visited daily, watching her fade despite the best care money could buy. Did you tell your father? She asked them one day, her voice thin. He knows, Trevor answered simply. Of course he does, she laughed weakly. Always 2 steps ahead, your father. Even when I thought I was so clever. You weren't, Sophia said flatly. Clever would have been appreciating what you had. Candace turned to the window. No, I suppose I wasn't. 6 months later, Candace passed away with only her children present. Frederick's condolence email arrived hours later, cold and formal. My deepest sympathies for your loss. Unfortunately, my new obligations in Switzerland prevent my attendance at any services. I trust you understand. New obligations? Trevor read from his phone. That's what he's calling his new family? Marshall snorted. At least he's consistent in his betrayals. Zachary stood in the doorway of the hospital room, watching his children process their grief. They'd asked him to come, not for Candace, but for them. Time moved forward, as it always does. Trevor and Marshall's graduation approached, their achievements at Princeton surpassing expectations. Zachary sat in the audience, Sophia beside him, watching his sons receive their diplomas. Butler, Marshall Alexander, the dean announced. Butler, Trevor James. They kept your name, Sophia whispered. They chose it, Zachary corrected. Like you did. Later, in his Aspen mansion, they celebrated together. Trevor's medical school acceptance letters covered the coffee table. Marshall's research fellowship offers competed for space. Sophia's Yale sophomore year dean's list certificate held pride of place. Did you see the news about Frederick? Marshall asked, passing his phone around. The headline read, Swiss authorities launch financial fraud investigation into former Boston surgeon. Karma, Trevor commented. Justice, Zachary corrected. Eventually, everyone faces the consequences of their choices. Sophia raised her glass. To choices then. And to the father who chose us, even when he didn't have to. Zachary looked at his children Trevor and Marshall, so different despite their identical genes, both becoming men of substance. Sophia, growing into a strength that had nothing to do with her mother's superficial legacy. Candace and Frederick had tried to destroy his life, thinking his wealth and status were his greatest achievements. Instead, they'd given him an unexpected gift, the chance to prove that love wasn't in blood or DNA, but in daily choices and quiet support. In Switzerland, Frederick Stewart faced a boardroom of stern-faced investigators, his new family's money already spent, his medical license under review. His phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Truth reveals itself eventually. He deleted it with shaking hands, remembering another note left on a kitchen table years ago. Outside his window, Swiss police gathered, while across the ocean, 3 children thrived under the protection of a father who had chosen them, again and again, regardless of biology. In the end, that choice had made all the difference. Epilogue. The final reckoning. 5 years after Princeton graduation. The Geneva Tribune's headline caught Frederick Stewart's attention as he sat in his cramped studio apartment. Former surgeon faces 10 years in prison for financial fraud. His hands trembled, spilling cheap coffee across the newspaper. How far he'd fallen from Boston General's star neurosurgeon to a convicted felon awaiting sentencing in Switzerland. His new family had abandoned him 2 years ago, taking what remained of their money. Poetic justice, some might say, though Frederick found no poetry in eating microwave dinners alone. His phone buzzed with a message from his lawyer. Prosecution rejected plea deal. They have new evidence. Frederick knew what that meant. His elaborate web of financial fraud hadn't just ensnared American investors he'd stolen from Swiss banks, a crime that country took particularly seriously. His medical license, already suspended, would be permanently revoked. He opened his laptop, typing Zachary Butler into the search bar. The results made him sick. Aspen's miracle surgeon opens state-of-the-art medical center. Dr. Butler pioneers revolutionary surgical technique. Butler Medical Group expands to Dubai and London. The man he tried to destroy had only grown stronger, while Frederick's life imploded piece by piece. In a sterile prison visitor's room, Candace Butler's former best friend, Patricia Montgomery, sat across from her husband Boston's newest district attorney. They found more evidence in Frederick's old office, Patricia said, sliding photos across the table. Remember those offshore accounts he and Candace set up? Turns out they were stealing from patients too. DA James Montgomery nodded. The statute of limitations hasn't expired. We're filing posthumous charges against Candace's estate. Everything she left will go to victim restitution. The children? Protected. Every penny Zachary put in those trusts is untouchable. James smiled. He really did think of everything. Unlike some people, Patricia remembered Candace's social climbing, her smugness, her betrayals. Did you know Frederick's new wife in Switzerland left him? Took their 2-year-old daughter. Apparently, she caught him with her sister. Leopards and spots, James mused. Speaking of which, Dean Hand's disbarment hearing is next week. Herbert Blanchard, now chairman of Boston General's board, reviewed the hospital's latest quarterly report. The post-Frederick scandal reforms had transformed the institution, making it a leader in ethical medical practice. His phone buzzed with a text from Zachary, in town for Trevor's chief resident ceremony. Dinner? In his corner office, Herbert smiled at the framed photo on his wall. Zachary and his children at the Butler Medical Group's opening gala. The media had loved that story. Brilliant surgeon builds empire while secretly supporting his children through their mother's betrayal and death. Reservation at Minton. He texted back. My treat. Lorraine's joining us. Lorraine Stewart, Frederick's ex-wife, had transformed Boston General's ethics department. Her experience had made her ruthlessly effective at spotting potential misconduct. Trevor Butler adjusted his chief resident's coat at Massachusetts General Hospital, the irony not lost on him that he now worked where his father had built his early reputation. At 30, he'd already published groundbreaking research in surgical techniques, building on the foundation of both nature and nurture. His phone chimed with a group text from Marshall. Just got the Nobel Committee's email. We made the short list. Marshall's genetics research had revolutionized understanding of familial bonds, proving that environmental factors could override genetic predispositions. His personal experience with Zachary had inspired his life's work. Sophia replied next, Dad's already booked the flights to Stockholm. Also, Yale Law Review loved my article on trust law reform. They're fast-tracking publication. Trevor smiled, remembering the broken family they'd been and the stronger one they'd become. His father had taught them the most valuable lesson. Character wasn't inherited, it was built. In his Aspen headquarters, Zachary Butler reviewed plans for his newest medical center. At 55, his hair had more silver, but his hands remained steady, his mind sharp. The Butler Medical Group had revolutionized private medical care, combining excellence with ethics. A notification popped up on his screen breaking news about Frederick's sentencing. 10 years in prison, complete asset forfeiture, lifetime ban from medical practice. The Swiss authorities had been thorough. His assistant knocked softly. Dr. Butler? Your daughter's on line 1. Put her through. Zachary saved the building plans. Dad. Sophia's voice carried excitement. I just got the partner offer from Cromwell and Shaw. Youngest in firm history. Never doubted you for a second. He checked his watch. Still on for family dinner? Trevor's flying in from Boston, Marshall from Stanford. Wouldn't miss it. Oh, and did you see the news about Frederick? Justice catches up eventually, Zachary replied, remembering that morning 25 years ago when he discovered their betrayal. Though sometimes it takes the scenic route. In Geneva's central prison, Frederick Stewart stared at the walls of his cell. His new wife had filed for divorce, taking their daughter back to her family in Zurich. His older children hadn't spoken to him in years. The twins, his biological sons, had publicly taken the Butler name, erasing his last claim to their success. The guard delivered his mail, divorce papers, medical board's final ruling, and a letter from his Swiss bank announcing complete asset forfeiture. Among them, a postcard from Aspen showed a stunning medical facility with Butler Medical Group in elegant letters. No message, no signature. None needed. Dean Hand's tiny law office in Providence dealt exclusively with traffic violations now. His involvement in the Butler divorce scheme had cost him his reputation, his Boston practice, and most of his assets. The Massachusetts Bar Association had made an example of him. Jared Hickman, the accountant who'd helped plan Candace's asset grab, had fared no better. His firm collapsed when clients learned of his ethical violations. He now taught basic accounting at a community college, his CPA license permanently revoked. At the Butler family's regular Sunday dinner in Aspen, 3 generations gathered around Zachary's table. Trevor's wife, a pediatric surgeon, discussed cases with her father-in-law while their 5-year-old daughter colored medical diagrams. Marshall and his husband debated genetic theories between bites of Wagyu beef. Sophia and her fiancé, a federal prosecutor, shared courthouse stories. "Did you see Frederick's prison interview?" Marshall asked during dessert. "Trying to play victim again. Some people never learn," Trevor replied. "Remember what Dad always says. Character reveals itself through choices." They finished in unison. Zachary looked around the table at the family built through choices rather than blood, at the legacy created from betrayal's ashes. Candace and Frederick had thought they were destroying his life. Instead, they'd forced him to build something stronger. The final scene played out in multiple locations. In Geneva, Frederick Stewart began his first day of a 10-year sentence. His designer suits exchanged for prison garb, his surgical hands now sorting laundry. In Boston's Mount Auburn Cemetery, Candace's grave remained unvisited except by her children, who'd come to terms with loving an imperfect mother while rejecting her choices. In the Butler Medical Group's boardroom, Zachary reviewed applications for their charitable foundation, which provided medical care to children regardless of ability to pay. The foundation's name? The Truth Fund. And in 3 separate successful lives, his children carried forward the real Butler legacy, not the one written in DNA, but the one written in choices. Trevor, saving lives as chief resident, wearing his father's old surgical loops. Marshall, unraveling genetic mysteries while proving family transcended DNA. Sophia, defending truth through law. Her Yale Law Review article now required reading in ethics courses. The Butler estate security footage, showing Candace and Frederick's betrayal, sat in a safety deposit box, never needed again. The truth had revealed itself without it, just as Zachary had known it would. In the end, karma hadn't needed his help. Justice, like surgery, sometimes required patience more than force. Candace and Frederick had destroyed themselves, while Zachary Butler had built an empire not of revenge, but of healing. The final headline said it all. Butler Medical Group celebrates 20 years, a legacy of excellence and ethic. Below the headline, a quote from Zachary Butler, now considered one of medicine's most influential voices. "Success isn't in what others take from you, but in what you choose to build after the loss." In his Aspen office, Zachary smiled at the framed note on his wall, the one he'd left on that kitchen table 25 years ago. The truth reveals itself eventually. It had. And the revelation had set everyone free, some to rise, others to fall, but all to face the consequences of their choices. Final footnote. Years later, medical ethics courses would study the Butler case not for its scandal, but for its aftermath. How one man's response to betrayal had transformed private medical care, inspired breakthrough research, and proven that family was built on choices, not chromosomes. In Geneva's prison library, Frederick Stewart found himself forced to read these case studies, part of his mandatory ethics education. Each page reminded him of the empire he might have shared, the sons he might have known, the life he might have led. But as Zachary Butler had proven, life wasn't about might-have-beens. It was about choices. And in the end, everyone faced the consequences of theirs.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy the story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.